The levity broke some of the tension, reminding them both they were in this together. Focus, stealth ninja. He peered around the corner, scanning the street for any signs of danger. Remember, my life depends on your graceful maneuvers. Who put you in charge? She teased, but her heart fluttered with warmth as she watched him, so commanding yet utterly human in these moments. Your knight in shining armor, he replied, returning her gaze with a determined gleam that drove the seriousness home. Just keep your eyes on me. With one last shared glance that held more than just trust, ambition, dreams, fears, they slipped back into the shadows, sprinting toward their uncertain future. As they reached the street corner, Zaire took her hand, their fingers intertwining in an electrifying connection. He paused, looking deep into her eyes, the world around them fading into a mere backdrop. Listen, he said softly, his breath warm against her skin. Whatever happens next, I won't let you go. I need you to believe that. Then let's make this count. Her voice, steady now, echoed the commitment that filled the night air. Daring, they stepped forward into the unknown, ready to confront the storm together, a new dawn waiting just out of reach. Scene 53, confronting the past. The tension crackled in the air like static electricity. Zaire Oladipo stood across the dimly lit bar, the faint scent of whiskey and stale cigarette smoke enveloping him. His jaw was clenched tight as he focused on the shadowy figure leaning against the wall, confidence radiating from her in waves. A haunting familiarity tugged at him, twisting emotions deep within that he thought he had carefully buried. I never thought I'd see you here, Zaire, came the sultry voice, smooth and deliberate. It was Marissa, a name he hadn't spoken aloud in years, but one that echoed in his mind. Some places never change, do they? Zaire replied, his tone measured, masking the urgency simmering beneath. He felt the weight of her gaze, steady and unwavering, pricking at the edges of his resolve. What do you want? Marissa laughed lightly, a melodic sound mingling with the discordant background noise of the bar. Always straight to business. You haven't changed a bit. She took a step closer, the soft click of her heels punctuating the space between them. I came to talk about the past, unfinished business. Zaire's body tensed, a spark of warning igniting as if the walls themselves were closing in. There's nothing unfinished between us, Marissa. That chapter is closed. Oh, it's far from closed, darling, she cooed, a teasing smile playing on her lips. She leaned closer, the intoxicating scent of jasmine enveloping him, mixing with the sharpness of the whiskey. Or are you telling me you've forgotten the night we? Let's not rehash our history, Zaire interjected, voice low and deliberate. Memories swirled like mist, reminding him of a reckless time when emotions were raw and trust tended to splinter. I've moved on. Have you? Her gaze pierced through him, seeking cracks in his sturdy facade. What's it like up there on your high horse, playing king? You do remember that even kings have secrets, don't you? A smirk tugged at the corner of Zaire's mouth, a flash of bitterness. And queens can be ruthless, Marissa. Don't think I'm afraid of your games. Marissa raised an eyebrow, her expression shifting to playfully challenging. Games? Oh, Zaire, these are no games. This is life. Your old friends are getting a bit restless, and you and I both know how that can end. Zaire's heart raced, each heartbeat echoing in his ears, blending with the pulsating rhythm of the bar's music. He didn't have time for this. Sefina, his world, his anchor, was out there, not far from the storm brewing in this moment. What is it you want from me? He finally asked, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. One last dance? I'm afraid I don't remember the steps. Oh, I think you still know them, Marissa countered, her tone shifting to something softer, more seductive. She reached out, her fingers brushing against his forearm, a fleeting touch that sent electricity through him. Tell me, Zaire, do you ever think about me? About what we could have been? His breath caught in his throat. The onslaught of memories surged, moonlit nights filled with laughter, whispered dreams, and tangled sheets. But intertwined were the betrayals, the falling out that left him scarred. He pulled back slightly, creating distance between them both physically and emotionally. That was another life. I'm not that person anymore. Are you sure? She whispered, leaning closer, her breath warm against his skin. It's so easy to slip back into the familiar, isn't it? Zaire's resolve wavered, his heart thundering against his chest. The air between them thickened, filled with unspoken words and unfinished feelings. He could see the challenge in her eyes, a flicker of a shared history that still hung like a pendulum over their heads. Complicated, dangerous. "I'll say this once," Zaire murmured, his voice low but firm as he captured her gaze. "I'm not going anywhere near that fire again." For a heartbeat, they stood suspended in time, the past colliding with the present, sparks flying through the air. An uncharacteristic impulse surged within him, the longing for what had been, an urge that demanded his attention. He leaned closer, a whisper of desire lacing his words. "Sometimes, Marissa, the past doesn't let go easily." As their lips brushed against each other, an intensity ignited, sending a rush of heat coursing through him. All around them faded into silence, leaving only the pulse of their connection, swirling with unresolved tension, longing, and the potential for catastrophe. And then, just as the world seemed to tip off its axis, he pulled back, leaving only the tantalizing echo of a kiss that could have spiraled into something more. "Remember," Zaire cautioned, voice low, "some things are better left buried." Marissa smiled, half rueful, half triumphant. "Is that so? Then why does it feel like our story isn't quite finished?" As he turned away, Zaire couldn't shake the feeling that the past had just cast its shadow again, dancing dangerously close as he headed into a future that felt increasingly uncertain. Scene 54. At the brink, the urban skyline glimmered under a twilight sky, but inside the flickering candle-lit room, shadows played against the walls, dancing with the tension thick in the air. Sefina stood by the window, hands pressed against the cool glass, watching the street below, as though the chaos out there might provide an answer about what was to come. Zaire leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his intense gaze tracking her every subtle movement. "Do you ever think we should just leave?" Sefina asked, breaking the silence without turning around. Her voice trembled slightly, but the fierceness of her question echoed. "Just pack everything and leave this mess behind us?" Zaire pushed himself off the door and stepped closer, the wood floor creaking under his weight. "And go where, Sefina? Running doesn't solve anything." Her body turned, frustration etched across her delicate features. "Then what do you suggest? Pretend we're living in some romance novel where everything works out just because we have feelings for each other?" "Feelings?" Zaire's brow furrowed, an edge creeping into his tone. "You think I'm feeling this?" He gestured dramatically to the room. "Because it feels good?" Unable to hold his gaze any longer, Sefina turned back to the window, biting the inside of her cheek. In the moment of silence that followed, the city buzzed outside, almost mockingly alive while they remained trapped in their swirling vortex of chaos. Zaire's frustration shifted, a flicker of warmth as he softened, stepping into her space. "You think I enjoy this?" he said, closer now, a gentler urgency behind his words. "Every time I think we've settled down, something else pulls you back into danger. It kills me." For the first time, Sefina felt the weight behind his anger, raw, visceral, almost palpable. Moments stretched, sharp as a knife's edge. The vulnerability in his tone cracked her defenses. "It kills you," she whispered, meeting his gaze. "What about me? This is my life in shambles, my dreams burnt to ashes. You think I'm not scared?" Zaire stepped forward, his fingers brushing against her arm, a silent plea that brought warmth against the coldness of reality. "I know you're scared. None of this is how it should be. But you've survived this long, haven't you? And I." He hesitated, swallowing hard as the enormity of his feelings washed over him. "I want to protect what's left of you." Their eyes locked, an uncharted territory where emotions skated along a razor-thin line between desire and trepidation. The air crackled, electric and alive, drawing them together like moths to a flame. Sefina bit her lip, the weight of 1,000 unsaid words trembling in the space between them. "But at what cost, Zaire? You're not a savior. You're just a man. You have your past, too." Her voice quivered, a torrid mix of defiance and longing. His expression hardened momentarily before softening again, revealing a glimmer of tender truth. "You've seen the darkness within me," he said, voice low and charged. "But it's your light that keeps me fighting. I can't lose you." On the verge of unraveling, Sefina inhaled slowly, the scent of sandalwood and smoke swirling around her like a spell. She took a step closer, heart thundering in her chest. "Then what do we do?" Just as their fates seemed to converge, the distant sound of an explosion erupted outside, shaking the very foundation of their sanctuary. Glass rattled, and the lights flickered precariously above them. Zaire instinctively grabbed her wrist, pulling her against him, and the whirlwind of emotions clashed into something primal, the need to shield and to be shielded igniting an unquenched fire. "Listen to me," he said, his voice a deep rumble that ignited her senses. "No matter what happens out there, you and I, we figure this out together. I won't let you go." She searched his eyes for certainty, the tension thrumming between them like a taut wire. The world outside might be collapsing, but in that moment, an understanding kindled, a bond intensified by chaos, shadowed by dangers yet untold. "Well," Sefina breathed, a hint of a smile breaking through the storm of emotions, "at least I know you're not just a pretty face." Zaire chuckled, the strain in his expression melting away for a moment. "Pretty faces are overrated. Have you seen my personality?" "Pretty much," she shot back, her smile growing as the lingering tension eased, if only a fraction. "Let's hope you're willing to fight for it." "I fight for you," he replied, voice earnest. Their hands brushed for a lingering moment, a connection that whispered promises against the darkness. Scene 55. Unexpected allies. The air crackled with tension, heavy clouds bruising the sky above the downtown skyline, much like Sefina's unsettled spirit. She paced in Zaire's office, a stark contrast of polished wood and vibrant artwork resting behind the glass walls. The storm outside mirrored the tempest within her heart, a swirling blend of apprehension and anticipation. Thoughts ricocheted through her mind, the weight of the secrets she carried pressing against her chest. "Zaire?" Her voice cut through the thick air as she turned, catching a glimpse of him entering, tall and commanding against the backdrop of the storm. "We need to talk." "Now's not the time, Sefina." His voice was gravelly, almost a growl, yet laced with an undeniable warmth that soothed her anxiety. The way he ran a hand through his tousled hair was both exasperating and endearing. "We have more important things to focus on." Sefina folded her arms, her frustration brewing like a tempest beneath the surface. "You mean like those more important things you can't even tell me about? I'm not just some pawn in a game you're playing." "Do you think this is a game?" Zaire's eyes darkened, the storm in them reflecting the onslaught of conditions outside. "I'm keeping you safe, Sefina. Every decision I make is to protect you." "Protect me?" She scoffed, her voice rising. "By shutting me out? By treating me like I'm a child who can't handle the truth?" He stepped closer, the air electrifying between them. "You have no idea what's at stake." "Then enlighten me," she shot back, her voice rising to a near shout. "I'm tired of your secrets." Suddenly, the room was interrupted by a loud knock, followed by the door bursting open. A gust of wind rushed in, chilling the already tense atmosphere. There stood Lila, her vibrant yellow raincoat draped haphazardly over one shoulder, soaked but undeniably effervescent. "Did I miss the drama? It looks like you two were about to throw down in here." "Lila, not now," Zaire muttered, his frustration palpable, but Sefina felt a flicker of relief as she turned towards her friend. "Well, since she's here, maybe we could all have a little heart-to-heart. You know, sharing is caring." Lila stepped inside, wringing out her hair with theatrical flair. "Careful, girl. The dampness will only add to his brooding persona. Not all of us can pull that off." Zaire chuckled, despite himself, and Sefina couldn't help but smile. It was a brief reprieve from the mounting pressure. "It's not the rain that's causing the mood, Lila." Zaire crossed his arms, a challenge sparkling in his dark eyes. "Sefina thinks keeping her in the dark is a good way to protect her." "Oh, please," Lila replied, rolling her eyes. "What's the worst that could happen? Some old enemies come knocking at your door? You think that's new to us?" Sefina glanced at Zaire, confused. "Old enemies?" "You didn't mention them," she pressed, her frustration resurfacing. Zaire sighed, a mix of exasperation and fondness. "I didn't think it was necessary for you to worry." "Not necessary?" She shot back, her voice rising again. "I'd rather worry about the truth than sit here pretending everything is rainbows and sunshine." "Are we not even going to touch on how you convinced me to stay inside rather than helping clean up your mess?" Lila interjected, waving her hands dramatically. "Because I could really use those details for my next viral post. Mess? Sefina echoed, her brows knitting together as she faced Zaire once more. What mess? Stop. Zaire's voice thundered, and the room fell silent. This is exactly what I'm trying to prevent. I'm not, you can't. His words faltered, the hurt in his expression switching to determination. I won't lose you to my past. Sefina felt an unexpected jab in her heart, a pang of realizing how deeply Zaire cared. The weight of his protectiveness warmed her, sparking something deeper. You're right, she finally said, her voice softer. But I can't also be locked away. I want to be part of your world, not a spectator. The tension melted like ice in the sun, and for a moment, the storm outside subsided. Zaire stepped closer, his breath warm on her cheek. We'll face whatever comes together, but I need your trust, not just in the good times, but when everything's on the line. Together, then. Sefina's voice was steady, the pulse of life returning to her veins. Together, he echoed, just as a staccato knock interrupted their moment, chilling the warmth. As Zaire opened the door cautiously, Sefina took a deep breath, heart pounding in sync with the ominous sky. This was only the beginning. Who's there? Zaire's voice came out sharp, but the next moment, his face morphed into a mask of surprise and something more anticipation, perhaps. Zaire Oladipo, guess who's come to stir up trouble? A sultry voice sang from the shadows. Sefina's heart sank, the room taking on a dense, chaotic energy once again. Scene 56, a necessary deception. Outside, rain drummed steadily against the window of Zaire's loft, an ominous rhythm that mirrored the tension coiling in the air. The light inside was dim, cast mostly by the flickering bulbs that lined the kitchen. Sefina stood at the counter, her hands expertly chopping vegetables, but her mind was a storm of discontent. The colors of the peppers were vivid against the dull backdrop of their predicament, yet she felt emotionally drained, as though the vibrant ingredients were mocking her. Zaire leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her intently. You're going to need more garlic than that if you plan to mask how you really feel, he remarked, his voice a mix of irony and genuine concern. She paused mid-chop, tossing him a sidelong glance. Right, because what I really need is to cook up a dish that hides my insecurities. She dropped the knife with a thud, turning to face him fully. You think this whole charade is going to work, don't you? Zaire's brow furrowed as he stood up straighter, stepping closer to the counter. We don't have a choice, Sefina. They're already on to us. You know that. His tone softened slightly. If we don't play our parts perfectly, they'll see right through us. Sefina, irritated, tossed her apron onto the chair with an unceremonious flourish. And what part am I playing exactly? The naive damsel? The clueless girlfriend? She clenched her fists. No, I'm not going to pretend anymore. I'm not just a decoration. Zaire's gaze narrowed, imbued with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. No one thinks you're a decoration, but you need to trust me on this. It's not just about you. It's about both of us surviving. Surviving? She spat, the tension rising between them like smoke. You think I can just keep waiting for you to save me, Zaire? I don't want to depend on your machinations. A thunderclap reverberated outside, shaking the very walls of the loft, as if even nature itself recoiled from the heat of their argument. Zaire stepped forward, crowding her space with an unyielding presence. What's the alternative, Sefina? Just run away and let them find us? He leaned in, lowering his voice conspiratorially. You're smarter than that. This is your opportunity to take control. Sefina's heart raced at his proximity, torn between frustration and an undeniable attraction. She lifted her chin defiantly. Taking control doesn't mean playing along with a lie. Zaire scoffed softly, shaking his head. No, but sometimes lying is necessary. Sometimes deception is the only path to truth. If we're to survive this hostility, we need to fight back with our wits. Heavy rain continued to fall, creating a backdrop for the charged moment between them. Sefina felt an internal battle brewing as she watched Zaire shift, his expression softening. I wouldn't ask this of you if I didn't believe in us, he admitted gently. The stakes are higher than ever, but if you let me in, I'll help you find yourself again. She felt her resolve falter as she locked eyes with him. The corners of his mouth twitched ever so slightly, like he'd shared a light joke without words. Just think of it as a really dramatic dinner theater. I might wear the tuxedo and you, my stunning co-star. For a brief, exhilarating second, A smile broke across her face despite the heaviness lingering there. Dinner theater? What do you think this is, a Broadway show? And who said anything about sharing the spotlight? Well, if we're going to act, I want top billing, he said, his voice playful, yet sincere. Besides, what's a duo without a little friction? Trust me, friction isn't our problem, she teased, though she felt the warmth blossoming beneath the surface. Zaire stepped back slightly, holding her gaze, his demeanor serious once more. Fine, let's be real, he said, tempered with sincerity. You're more than capable. I know the power you possess. We're in this together now, and I will protect you. Sefina inhaled deeply, their banter fading to the background. It was the first honest thing he'd said all day. Steeling herself, she nodded, that flicker of resolve returning. Okay, but if I'm diving into this ruse, there are no half measures. Zaire smiled, a genuine warmth radiating from him, easing the lingering shadows. I'd expect nothing less. Just don't forget, this is a partnership. Right. Just as long as our partnership doesn't include any offstage romantic entanglements, she quipped lightly, her eyes twinkling with mischief. You know I can't promise that, he replied with a confident smirk, drawing closer again. But let's make sure to keep our secrets straight first. As the rain poured outside, they stood on the precipice of something new, ready to dance on the knife edge of danger, their hearts caught in the storm. Scene 57, Trust Building. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting golden rays that splintered through the oak trees lining the old abandoned warehouse. Dust motes danced lazily in the air, carried by a soft breeze that whispered through the cracked windows. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, as if the very walls held their breath. The faint scent of rust, mingled with a hint of gasoline, clung to the air, grounding the gravity of the moment. Sefina Agbo paced the floor, her boots thudding rhythmically against the cold concrete. She tightened her jaw, feeling the weight of expectation heavy on her shoulders. The remnants of her colorful life, now reduced to brushes and canvases lined unevenly against the wall, painted a stark contrast to the dim environment. This place felt like a canvas for secrets, shadows lurking in every corner. Zaire Oladipo stood a few paces away, his back straight, arms crossed. He was a formidable presence, dark eyes scanning their surroundings, alert to the unseen dangers that could emerge at any moment. The air between them thrummed with unspoken words, tension crackling like static electricity. Sefina, we need to talk about what's next, he said, his voice deep and steady, but the slight furrow in his brow revealed his unease. Next, she echoed, turning to meet his gaze. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from the intoxicating blend of anxiety and excitement that had begun to bloom between them. You mean we need to get out of here, right? Because that's all I'm focused on. She was deflecting, pushing aside the swell of emotions that threatened to spill over like paint from an overturned can. Zaire stepped closer, the space between them shrinking, charged with an electricity neither could deny. I'm serious. We can't keep avoiding the truth, he said, moving his hand to brush against her elbow, a gentle gesture that elicited a shiver. Trust is the only thing keeping us afloat in this storm. Trust? She scoffed lightly, yet her eyes betrayed something deeper, fragile vulnerability. You've been shielded from the chaos I've experienced. How can I trust someone who knows my darkest secrets but hasn't shown me his? His jaw clenched, a fleeting shadow passing over his features. You think I'm hiding from you? This isn't easy for me either, Sefina. I've sacrificed everything to make sure you stay safe. And yet I hardly know you. The words tumbled out, tinged with frustration, each syllable shaped by an insatiable craving for transparency. Yet the fire in her tone was muted by a whisper of yearning, a wish for connection beyond the fear. Zaire flinched slightly, the truth hanging heavily between them. His eyes softened, a flicker of uncertainty making visible the man behind the carefully crafted armor. You do know me. Each time you reach out, each time you dive deep into your art, a part of you shatters and rebuilds. And somehow I've been there, unseen yet present. Is that why you moved my colors into a palette? She said, her voice quieter now, disbelief playing on her lips. He grinned, a soft warmth enveloping the room, dispelling some of the tension. Guilty as charged. I just always thought you painted for pain rather than with it. Perhaps you should try picking up a brush sometime, she teased, her smile breaking free, even as her heart thudded audibly in her chest. I promise it's therapeutic. Zaire chuckled, the sound rumbling through the air like a distant storm. Is that the secret to your power? A paintbrush? A little too simple, don't you think? I like simple, she quipped, stepping a notch closer, the distance narrowing like a tightrope they both balanced on. Your world is loud and chaotic. Mine is this vivid escape. Then let me paint with you, he whispered, his voice low, intent piercing through her defenses. As the light dimmed and shadows stretched across the floor, they stood on the precipice of something profound. Zaire reached for her hand, his touch tentative yet grounding, completely unexplainable. In that fragile moment, their laughter faded, replaced by the weight of possibilities, a shared silence layered with longing. Zaire leaned in, inches apart, his breath a whisper against her skin. Trust me, Sefina. Let me help you find the beauty in chaos. And she realized for the first time that she might not have to face the storm alone. Scene 58, Unmasked Intentions. The city hummed a dissonant tune beneath Sefina's feet as she pressed deeper into the shadows of the alley. Each murmur of the wind through the discarded newspaper felt like a whisper of danger, a constant reminder of her vulnerability. For weeks, the layers of grime had become a second skin for her, one she could peel away, but always left her exposed. Today, however, felt different. Today, secrets would surface, and she could sense the ground shifting beneath her. Zaire appeared, sudden like thunder, his tall frame silhouetted against the flickering streetlight. He was the apex of control in a world of chaos. As he approached, his keen eyes pinned her in place. Sefina, he said, his voice a low, steady murmur that lulled the rapid thumping of her heart, both a comfort and a gut-wrenching realization of the stakes. Why are we meeting here, Zaire? She asked, her breath catching in her throat. The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked pavement and the lingering smoke from a nearby food truck. This isn't safe. He stepped closer, his presence consuming the space. It's not just the streetlights we need to worry about. The weight in his voice anchored her, and she found herself leaning into the palpable energy between them. Tell me what's going on, she continued, trying to mask the edge of panic creeping into her words. An echo of silence fell between them, heavy with unspoken words. Zaire searched her eyes, as if considering whether to let her in or keep her at arm's length. Trust is a fragile thing, Sefina, he finally said, his voice a low rumble that danced along her spine. And right now, I don't know who I can trust. What does that mean? She stepped back, gauging him with scrutiny. The amber streetlight splayed across his face, highlighted the contradiction within, a fierce protector swaddled in shadows, eternally haunted. You don't have to protect me from everything. No. His gaze sharpened, his tone clipped. But I do need to protect you from those closest to us. There's been a betrayal. The grit of asphalt felt firm under her shoes, as if anchoring her in this electric moment. Betrayal? By whom? She pressed, her mind racing through their circle, the faces of their mutual friends, her heartbeat a persistent thud. Leo, he replied, his intensity palpable. He's been feeding information to the Devons. They're circling like vultures, waiting for something, anything to attack. Stunned silence enveloped Sefina as she processed his words. Leo, a friend she thought she could trust, now a traitor? The treachery sliced through her like glass. But he wouldn't. He couldn't. Every man has his price, Zaire interjected firmly. Uncertainty bubbled within her, punctuated by a rush of emotions swirling like a storm. Zaire, I want to hope there's some misunderstanding. Her voice trembled, the weight of their shared history thickening the air. I can't believe he would do this to us. We don't have time for hope, he replied, frustration lacing his words. You need to trust me. I'll handle this, and I'll keep you safe. Her pulse quickened and warmth blossomed in her chest. She wanted to reach for him, to feel the reassurance of those capable hands. But instead, she crossed her arms against the sudden lull in the night air, her armor against an intimacy she both craved and feared. What if you're wrong, Zaire? What if this is a recklessness we both regret? Zaire leaned in, the distance closing to the point where she could feel the steady rhythm of his breathing. And what if you need me close as much as I need you? The question hung between them like fireworks before a spark. Then we're both in danger, she whispered, a mix of defiance and desire rolling off her tongue. Together, he declared, a promise woven in steel. We'll face it together. The silence that followed was an intricate tapestry of unspoken truths and lantern-lit hopes, swirling the air around them, taut with anticipation. Her heart raced against the charge, daring to cross the precipice of fear. And yet, in that moment, engulfed by the weight of their intertwining fates, Sefina realized they stood at the verge of something monumental, an unmasking of intentions that went beyond simple protection. It was a reckoning, and she was resolute that it would not only challenge her to trust Zaire, but to embrace the depths of her own heart. Scene 59. Hearts on the line. Sefina Agbo stood at the kitchen counter, chopping carrots with a precision that belied the chaotic thoughts swirling in her mind. The scent of garlic simmered in the air, the warm, earthy notes wrapping around her like a cherished memory. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across her small apartment, the light painting the walls in soft golds and wines. She could hear the faint murmur of traffic through the window, a comforting reminder of life continuing beyond her four walls. Do you always chop vegetables like you're about to take down a criminal? The deep, smooth voice of Zaire Oladipo cut through her concentration, carrying with it a teasing lilt that made her heart race inexplicably. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, that devilish smirk stirring something dormant within her, igniting a warmth that had little to do with the stove. Only when my life is spiraling. Should I call a therapist? Sefina replied sharply, her eyes narrowing as she glanced up at him, but the playful tone of her voice betrayed her harsh words. You could always just talk to me, he offered, stepping forward, his presence filling the small space, rich and vibrant. It's not that easy, Zaire. She sighed, tossing the diced carrots into a bowl with a bit more force than necessary. Truth weighed on her chest. He knew too much. The weight of unshared truths danced between them like specters in the half-light. His gaze darkened, concern flickering behind those intense eyes. Why not? We both have stuff we need to unload. There was no judgment in his voice, only an invitation, though the looming tension made her stomach twist. She leaned against the counter, her fingers brushing against the cool surface as she pondered how to express the chaos inside. It's not that I don't want to. She faltered, the intensity of his gaze drawing her further into vulnerability. Hey. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You can trust me. The words hung between them, charged with the promise of understanding and the fear of exposure. Shifting, she looked away, biting her lower lip, a habit she couldn't shake. I hardly know what trust means anymore. Zaire moved to her side, their shoulders almost touching, warmth radiating between them. He reached for a carrot, and she couldn't help but chuckle. You plan on making a salad? Maybe I just wanted to cut something while I waited for you to find your courage, he said with a wink. Ha! Very funny, she replied, her laughter mingling with the tension, clearing some of the air. Their eyes locked, lingering a second too long, a moment when the world faded out beyond the intoxicating spell they wove. Then, with an almost imperceptible shift, the mood transitioned, his fingers grazed hers, igniting a spark that spread warmth through her veins. How about you let me help you? He asked, the huskiness of his voice sending delightful shivers racing along her skin. I can handle a salad, she protested weakly, though her heart was racing and her breath quickening. But not your life, Zaire said softly, the hint of challenge lighting his face. She swallowed hard, not meeting his gaze now, avoiding the truth piled high within those piercing depths. I didn't choose this life, Zaire. It came crashing down without warning, and every time I think I have it under control, it falls apart again. He moved even closer, his body just a breath away, the proximity leaving her ears ringing with unvoiced thoughts. Then let me help hold it together, he urged, his voice low, almost like a vow that resonated deeply within her. And suddenly his hands were on hers, not demanding, just firm. Sefina, he murmured, the mention of her name like a promise laced with understanding. Time stretched as silence enveloped them, thick and full of unexpressed emotions. She dared to look into his eyes then, the weight of her secrets pulling her forward. And if I let you in, what happens when you see all the pieces? Zaire leaned in, warm breath brushing against her lips. I promise you, I don't see broken. I see strength waiting to be set free. A A heartbeat passed, then another, and in that electric silence, she found her courage. "Okay," she whispered. With that, Zaire closed the distance, capturing her lips with his. The kiss was a vivid explosion of warmth and longing, a soft yet urgent promise of the chaos entwined with them. She melted against him, surrendering to the feeling that began to untangle her heart like a well-worn melody. As tenderness transformed into something deeper, the outside world faded to oblivion. They were lost in their shared vulnerabilities, drawing closer, each heartbeat resonating with the beautiful chaos that threatened to engulf them both. And in that moment, amidst the simmering chaos and dim light, she believed that perhaps, just perhaps, they could weather any storm together. Scene 60, Dancing with Shadows. The twilight sky draped itself over the abandoned warehouse, where unrepaired windows glinted like lost stars amid rusted beams and forgotten memories. Inside, the air was thick with a scent of metal and dust, contrasting sharply with the thrill of danger that vibrated through Sefina Agbo's veins. Pulsing music throbbed in the background, an underground celebration echoing through the cavernous space, drawing an eclectic crowd whispering secrets and brushing against the edges of rebellion. "Are you sure about this?" Sefina glanced at Zaire Oladipo, whose tall silhouette caught the fading light. The way he stood, confident yet guarded, sent a shiver of admiration through her. He was a fortress brimming with warmth and strength, but tonight vulnerability flickered behind his intense gaze, like a candle eager to be seen. Zaire turned to her, a light teasing in his deep voice. "You mean, will I protect you while you embrace your inner badass?" "Absolutely." He waved a hand theatrically as he spoke, his lips curling into that signature smirk that had, more than once, lifted her spirits when the darkness closed in. "Badass? You mean the brave woman who's decided to crash an illicit gathering of secrets and shadows?" A faint smile hinted at the corners of her mouth, wrapping comfort around her resolve. She mattered here, she thought, a queen ready to stake her claim amid chaos. "Exactly. The bravest," he replied, stepping closer, allowing the heat of his body to seep into her. "And you're not just crashing, you're reclaiming. Don't think of this as a step into the unknown. Think of it as a dance." "Dance?" she laughed, a vibrant spark igniting between them. "The only dance I know is dodging my therapist's probing questions." "Then we'll create new steps," he insisted, leaning in, his breath warm against her ear. "How about you teach them your rhythm, Sefina?" At this, she rolled her eyes playfully but felt something shift beneath her skin. There was something intoxicating about them being together in this place, under these circumstances, the thrill of defying fate, the promise of empowerment blooming in her chest. "Okay, Mr. Bossman," she said, playing along. "Tell me, what are the dance moves for foolproof survival in a room full of shady characters?" You sidestep the drama, charm the center of attention, and strategically use your heels to keep people guessing. He shot her a sidelong glance, his smile deepening, casting an irresistible spell. Their banter flowed like music, each note layering their connection thicker. Suddenly, a quarrel erupted just beyond the makeshift bar area. Voices raised in harsh tones, laughter mixed with sharp jabs. "Does this count as drama?" Sefina whispered, anxiety threading through her. "Relax. It's probably just a disagreement over who owes whom money." Zaire chuckled, though there was a glimmer of concern in his eyes. "But let's not hang around to find out." In an instant, he grasped her hand, pulling her towards the dance floor. The beats shifted, and Zaire moved like a shadow. He guided her, twirling her into a space clear of the throng, his focus unyielding. "Feel the music, Sefina. Breathe with it." She obeyed, matching his energy, the rhythm pumping an exhilaration through her. For the first time in ages, the walls she built started crumbling. Her laughter rang out, buoyed by the shimmer of the moment. "See? You're a natural." Zaire's eyes sparkled under the flickering lights, holding her in a gaze that seeped warmth into her. "Only because you're leading," she replied, spinning beneath his protective arc. As the music swelled, bringing life to this hiding spot of rebellion, Sefina felt an unexpected pang of need within the laughter intense and profound. "Zaire," she ventured, her voice barely a whisper over the pounding beat. "What if I can't go back to the way things were before?" With an intensity that snapped the air between them taut, Zaire leaned closer. "You won't. We make our own way." He paused, his breath brushing her cheek. "Together." Caught in his orbit, she could no longer deny the pull of his presence, a promise lingering in the spaces between them. Together, she echoed, a surge of hope bubbling beneath her reserved exterior. Absolutely. Wherever shadows might linger, I'll step into them. He extended his hand, a silent invitation that missed words. With the shadows closing in around them, Sefina felt the weight of her fears giving way, allowing her spirit to dance, lighter yet braver than it had ever been before. Scene 61, the final countdown. The dim light of the kitchen flickered, casting elongated shadows that danced on the walls like unwelcome memories. Sefina stood by the window, a single hand clutching a dish towel, the other absently tracing the cool surface of the glass as she gazed out at the rain-lashed city. Each drop echoed a rhythm of unease, mimicking the turbulent thoughts swirling in her mind as she replayed the events that had led her to this moment, a moment heavy with portent. Zaire moved with the fluid grace of someone who had taken lessons from shadows. He was at the sink, scrubbing the remnants of a takeout container, the clatter of plastic mingling with the rain's percussion, a bizarre symphony. His brow furrowed slightly, not just in concentration, but in the weight of the unsaid, the burden of secrets and their shared history hovering between them like a storm cloud. "Sefina," he said, pausing, still holding the greasy sponge midair. "Do you remember the first time we met?" His voice, deep and smooth like aged whiskey, hung in the air, laced with a wistful softness. Sefina turned from the window, her heart catching momentarily in her chest as her eyes met his. "Are you seriously bringing that up now? We're about to wade into the deep end, and you want to reminisce about how you almost knocked me over in that art gallery?" Her tone danced between playful and serious, though she couldn't hide the faint smile that tugged at her lips. Zaire chuckled, stepping closer. "You were lost in that abstract piece, practically hypnotized. I thought I'd found a fellow dreamer, until you huffed at me for interrupting." He grinned, a flash of warmth breaking the tension that seemed to cocoon them. "That's courage right there." "Courage?" Sefina laughed lightly, shaking her head. "That was me being rude, and yet you were so unfazed." Her laughter was a balm, and despite the looming shadows of the day's events, she felt a flicker of hope. His expression softened, eyes glimmering with something richer than humor. "You know, sometimes I think about that day too, the vibrant chaos of it. You had a fire." He stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking, charged with an unspoken current. "Fire makes a mess, Zaire," she said quietly, somber. "I burned a lot of people, and myself in the process." Her eyes lowered, tracing the design on the floor, as if the tiles could offer solace to the heaviness she now wore. "Every fire can be tamed." Zaire reached out, gently lifting her chin with a calloused finger, compelling her to meet his gaze again. The air thickened, sizzling with unsaid things. "And every wound has its scars. You're not defined by past mistakes, Sefina. You're so much more." She wanted to believe him. His words, their warmth, the weight, the way they wrapped around her like an embrace, felt like the light she had long sought. "What if I don't know how to step into the light without tripping?" Zaire's smile faltered, and he leaned in, their foreheads nearly touching. "Then I'll hold your hand, each step of the way." The earnestness in his voice clung to them, wrapping around the ticking clock that echoed louder with every passing second, a reminder of the confrontation that awaited them. The world outside faded into a whisper, a distant hum, as he leaned closer still. The warmth of his breath brushed against her lips, and Sefina felt her pulse quicken, the moments stretching infinitely. It was that perfect blend of terror and desire, the crescendo building between them, both exhilarating and terrifying. "Zaire," she breathed, just above a whisper, her defenses crumbling like ash, the truth of her fear laid bare. "You don't have to say anything," he murmured, his voice deepening. And then, everything snapped into focus, two souls intertwining in a breathtaking stillness. They moved as one, a gentle push and pull, drawn together like magnets. Their lips met softly, the kiss electric yet tender, firing off 1,000 vibrant sparks. It tasted of longing, of unspoken dreams and unyielding trust, a promise sealed with every soft brush and lingering embrace. However, the moment was fleeting, filled with the sense that they were wrapping themselves in each other's resolve before the storm would breach their fragile sanctuary. As the kiss deepened, the shadows outside writhed, a reminder of who they were and what lay ahead. Suddenly, the door rattled violently, breaking the spell with a harsh clarity that sent their hearts racing. "Zaire!" Sefina whispered, panic creeping into her voice, pulling them back to the present. "We'll face it together," Zaire replied, determination etching itself onto every line of his handsome face. No more running. As the door trembled again, their hands intertwined, both steadying and emboldening one another beneath the weight of the countdown ticking ominously in the distance. Scene 62. Battle for Love. The basement of the abandoned warehouse smelled of rust and neglect, as if the ghost of the industrial age still lingered like a stubborn stain in the air. Flickering fluorescent lights cast erratic shadows, making the space seem alive with whispers of danger. Zaire paced, every thread of tension coiling like a spring within him, his confident stride matching the rhythmic thud of his heart. The weight of what lay ahead felt palpable. Sefina leaned against the cold concrete wall, arms crossed defensively, her polished nails a stark contrast against the gritty backdrop. Her dark curls hung loosely around her shoulders, framing a face that wore both determination and fear. "You know this isn't just about us," she said, her voice steady despite the flicker of anxiety in her gaze. "We're fighting a storm that could destroy everything." Zaire stopped, turning to face her, the corners of his mouth twitching in an expression that straddled amusement and exasperation. "Are you really going to compare this to a storm? I'd pick a tornado over the mess we're in any day." Sefina glanced at her scuffed shoes, taking a deep breath, a moment of vulnerability cascading down her defenses. "Do you think we've got the strength to get through this? Because it feels like we're facing an avalanche." "An avalanche?" Zaire echoed, a low laugh escaping his lips, surprising her with its warmth. "You've been reading too many apocalyptic novels. We've got the odds stacked against us, sure, but we're not powerless. Together, we're a force." Nodding slowly, Sefina felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. I want to believe that. I want to believe in us." The air thickened with a silent understanding, a promise forged through their shared vulnerabilities. It was a moment Kismet had been waiting for. The calm before the storm was building around them. But there, in that sacred space, their gazes locked, and the world outside faded. "I'm not letting you go through this alone," Zaire said, stepping closer, the intensity in his expression igniting a spark that surged between them. "You are stronger than you know, Sefina. Don't underestimate the power of your spirit." "Or yours," she replied softly, her heart racing. "You're the one who stands against the tide to protect what matters." "Protecting is easy," he said, brushing his fingers against her arm, sending a shiver racing down her spine. "Loving someone can be the hardest battle of all." Sefina's breath hitched, the proximity magnifying the electric tension that crackled in the air, cloaking them in an exhilarating warmth. She stepped closer, filling the space between them, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then let's fight together, Zaire. Let's storm the gates." Just then, the warehouse doors creaked open, slicing through their moment like an unwanted guest. A group of men prowled in, their presence dark and predatory. Zaire's body snapped into readiness, muscles coiling like spring steel. "We need to go," he said, urgency sharpening his voice. "Now." But Sefina shook her head, determination flooding her system. "No, we face this together, Zaire. I'm not hiding anymore." The resolve in her eyes ignited something within him, a fierce pride, a protective instinct that coursed through his veins like wildfire. "Then we stand our ground. No retreat, no surrender." In the midst of the encroaching threat, he leaned in, cradling her face in his hands as he brought her lips to his. The kiss began as a whisper, a delicate brush that ignited the fire beneath the surface. Zaire's lips moved against hers with a raw tenderness that promised everything: strength, solace, and an unwavering commitment. Sefina responded with equal fervor, wrapping her arms around his neck, pulling him closer as emotions swirled, grounding them even as the storm approached. There was an urgency in their connection, a deep-seated need to fortify against the chaos outside by choosing each other, completely and irrevocably. But even as passion swelled between them, the darkness loomed ever closer. The kiss deepened, blooming like a midnight flower, rife with the tensions of their impending battle, until just as quickly as it began, they pulled away, breathless and aware, the sound of etheric footsteps echoing ominously around them. "We fight for this," Zaire murmured against her lips, their foreheads touching, the intimacy standing in stark contrast to the danger approaching. "For us," Sefina nodded, understanding dawning. "For love." With that unyielding truth, they prepared to face whatever fate awaited them, entwined in courage, passion, and the undeniable power of their bond. Scene 63. The explosion. The rain pooled on the pavement, distorting the neon lights of the street, an electric pulse before the storm. Sefina Agbo stood breathless, the cold air pressing against her skin as she stole a glance behind her, her heart racing. This was supposed to be a simple night, a canvas of possibility where she could escape the heavy fog of her life. Instead, chaos filled the alley, echoes of screams merging with the rhythm of her own pounding heartbeat. "Zaire," she called, her voice echoing like a plea. But he was moving fast, muscles taut, as if he were a force of nature himself, weaving through the shadows with an intensity that left her both scared and exhilarated. Suddenly, the world erupted. An explosion lit the night sky, bright and violent, making her narrow her eyes against the searing light. Flames danced, licking at the edges of the crumbling brick wall, casting flickers of gold that made the scene almost surreal. "Get down," Zaire shouted, his deep voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. He lunged forward, grabbing her wrist with a grip that both sent warmth spiraling through her and ignited a flutter of anxiety within her chest.